Good morning. 4 days ago, the Washington correspondent of the Financial Times of UK reported that in the month of August, China had conducted the test of its fractional orbital bombardment system using hypersonic glide vehicle. The Chinese have denied the report, but on close scrutiny, their denial does not seem credible. Seems that actually the test was done in the month of August. With demonstration of this test, what China has showcased is a global nuclear strike capability from space on any target on Earth without giving any warning, with total impunity, and with no consideration for range. That means the target could be anywhere on the Earth. It's a huge thing. And what they have done by this is they have moved the goalpost of a nuclear triad into what could now be called a nuclear quad. Until now, the world had known that there were two vectors, or there were two ways that the nuclear weapons could be delivered. It could be done from land, could sea, and from air. Now the Chinese have gone and added the fourth vector also, which is from space, that they can be delivered from space as well. Big news. Strangely, totally missed in the Indian mainline media. It is shameful for the simple reason you miss a news like this at a time when the PLA for the last 14 months has been sitting on our territory in eastern Ladakh, and India as a strategic partner, rather more than a strategic partner, having signed the 4 military foundation agreements of the US, is completely embedded in the US Indo-Pacific strategy through the Quad, the Quadrilateral Dialogue. So what I intend doing in this video is I will address 3 issues. One, I will talk about what this technology is. Second, I will talk about how this technology affects deterrence in the region. Basically the balance of power in this region, which is today primarily between China and America. I'll talk about that. And then I will talk about if and what are the implications for India from this test. Let me start with the technology first. Now, when we say fractional orbital bombardment system using hypersonic glide vehicle, it has 2 parts. One part is the hypersonic glide vehicle. Let me start with that. It was at the National Day Parade of China on 1st October 2019 that they first time showcased the hypersonic glide vehicle called DF-2F with a range of 2000 kilometers at the parade, and it had already been inducted into the inventory of the PLA by 2018. And this was mounted, the hypersonic glide vehicle was mounted in the parade on the DF-17 medium range ballistic missile with a range of 2500 kilometers. Now how this will work is that it is mounted, the hypersonic glide vehicle is mounted on this missile, the missile takes off, and the missile is supposed to, from the atmosphere, go into the space. It's a ballistic missile. When it goes into space, as we know, ballistic missile, it follows a parabolic path. It goes out of space, then there is a re-entry vehicle which then re-enters the space. In this case, what would happen is that the hypersonic glide vehicle at the higher reaches of the atmosphere, it will detach itself from the DF-17 and it will be on its own. Now when I say higher reaches, I am talking of altitudes of around 60 kilometers. As we know, the total altitude from the mean sea level of the atmosphere and before space starts, it's 100 kilometers altitude. So around 60 is where it will detach and it will cruise on its own, it will move, with 3 characteristics that the hypersonic glide vehicles and the hypersonic cruise missiles, again which have been inducted in the inventory of the PLA, they have. The first is speed. The hypersonic glide vehicle would move at a speed of more than 5 Mach. Mach is the speed of sound, could be 5 Mach, 6 Mach, 7 Mach, it could be the speed, which means that it will actually move with the immense kinetic energy. When the hypersonic glide vehicle hits the target, it will do that with huge energy. But this is not the key characteristics, because after all, this sort of energy and these speeds we can get easily in the IRBMs, intermediate range ballistic missiles, and the intercontinental ballistic missiles. They have 10 Mach and these sort of speeds are there. It is the other two characteristics which are very distinctive of the hypersonic glide vehicle. The second is that, as I said, it cruises at the higher speeds, higher reaches of the atmosphere. And the third, which is completely unique, is that it does not follow any assigned path. Basically, it keeps maneuvering, which means with these two characteristics, it is maneuvering at the higher reaches. It is very difficult for terrestrial radars, land-based radars, to track, detect these missiles until they are very close to the target. Then actually it's useless. And the over the horizon radars are never known to be accurate. In other words, the Americans are already baffled by this hypersonic glide vehicle of the Chinese, for the simple reason that only two countries have inducted this technology yet into the inventory, Russia and China. Americans are still to induct it into their military. Now, this was one, and on top of that, now they have gone one step further, the Chinese. What they did was, in August, they did not use a missile. They used their Long March 2C rocket, which is an orbital launch vehicle, and they attached the hypersonic glide vehicle to this orbital launch vehicle. Now, this took the hypersonic glide vehicle to the orbit, which means in space, where it started orbiting. Now, this is a very unique thing. Hypersonic glide vehicle is supposed to get detached within the atmosphere. Now, it has gone in outer space, and now it can orbit the Earth. It is in the orbit, low Earth orbit. Now, it's called fractional orbital, which basically means it will actually look for a place. It will not do complete orbit. It will do a fraction of the orbit, look for that place where it can again re-enter the Earth, like a re-entry vehicle. Which means that instead of a re-entry vehicle, the hypersonic glide vehicle will have the characteristics to withstand that immense heat that a re-entry vehicle has to when it re-enters from space to the atmosphere. So, that is one technology which obviously got validated. So, basically the whole idea is now look something like this, that everybody knows that the American systems, the early warnings and the ballistic missile system, they all are facing the North Pole. That is what we call the North America Aerospace Defense Command. Now, what if when this hypersonic glide vehicle is orbiting fraction of the orbit, it comes to the South Pole, and that is where it re-enters to hit a target on Earth. So, you see, it completely bypasses the early warning capability of the Americans, completely bypasses their ballistic missile systems. This is a capability, complete baffling. So, this is what they have demonstrated, and obviously it has sent the Americans in a tizzy, for the simple reason that the nuclear deterrence which was established between China, which existed between China and America, has got destabilized. Not only that, the Chinese have done more. Since 2015, for the last 5 years, they have been improving their delivery systems and their nuclear weapons. The fewer nuclear weapons that they have as compared with the Americans. For example, there have been reports that they have established more land silos, which is for the intercontinental ballistic missiles. So, they have increased the land missiles. Then there are reports that in 2018, the Chinese have inducted in their inventory the H6N, N stands for nuclear, H6N strategic bombers, and they have tested it with an air-launched ballistic missile fitted with a hypersonic glide vehicle. This has been tested. They are part of the inventory, and now there is a new strategic bomber unit in PLA's Central Theatre Command. It is there. Then, as far as the sea deterrence is concerned, the third generation JL3 also has been integrated now in the plan, PLA Navy, with a supposed range between 9,000 kilometers to 12,000 kilometers. In other words, it has completely destabilized the nuclear deterrence, which is the reason that the Bush administration now has committed $1.5 trillion this year. They have been committed for upgrading their for the nuclear plants. It has been done. So, it would be interesting, just as an aside, if I just speak a bit about where does India stand in all this. It actually is irrelevant to this, but we should know where it stands. Now, first of all, as I have explained in a couple of my videos earlier, the nuclear deterrence of India has not worked at all. Why I say that is that our nuclear weapons are not supposed for war fighting. They are to provide deterrence, and in April, May 2020, the Chinese were not deterred. They came and sat on in our area, on our territory, and they are still there. So that is over. Now we do not also have the capability of a missile defense. Now, to recall, in 2010, I had a long talk with the then DRDO chief, Vijay Saraswat, and he gave me firm timelines. He said that by 2013, DRDO, which is the Defense Research Development Organization, would have accomplished phase 1 of the indigenous ballistic missile defense program. Phase 1 is that we will have a capability to intercept both inside the atmosphere and outside the atmosphere, which is called the exo and the endo atmosphere interceptor capability to take on 2000 kilometer range missiles. And he said that by 2015, India will have the capability to intercept missile again at two places, exo and endo, of 5,000 kilometers range. Well, we don't have a ballistic missile defense system. We don't even know what has happened to that. So that is where we are. But what we know is that he has got a raise. Vijay Saraswat today is now in a much higher position, sitting there, but that is besides the point. Now, even as far as the S-400 that we are acquiring from the Russians, and they will start the induction by the end of this year, is concerned, they do not cater for the ballistic missile. It's a very good air defense missile system which caters till the cruise missiles and not the ballistic missiles. And the other problem obviously will be of the integration. And the integration problem is that it has to cover a wide arc. Now, we have not taken the entire system along with S-400 of the Russians. We are trying to integrate the S-400 with our indigenous Akash surface to air missile, which is actually a 40 years old technology. I will leave it at this. I will not go any further. Discerning viewers can draw their correct, right conclusions on this. Coming back to the deterrence that I spoke about. Now, this deterrence, nuclear deterrence, has been imbalanced. Now, the theory is like this, that two major powers or any two powers will not go to war. They will not go to war if there is a credible deterrence with both. There is a nuclear credible deterrence and there is a conventional credible deterrence. Why they don't go to war is simple, that because neither side will be able to do war control. Neither side will be able to control the war escalation ladder, which means that neither side is confident of achieving its war objectives. Hence, they will not go to war. They will keep playing below the threshold of level of war, which is called the grey zone operations, which the PLA calls information war, is precisely what is going on right now in Taiwan Strait and South China Sea. But insofar as this is concerned, having said that the nuclear deterrence, there is an imbalance. Now let's see the conventional deterrence, what is going on there. The American conventional deterrence basically has two parts. Part number one is that the Americans are trying very hard to deny capabilities to the PLA, that it leapfrogs or it stays ahead of the US military in the new war, which is the robotized war, which is the intelligence-sized war, as I have spoken earlier also about it. This is what the PLA calls it. So they are trying to deny technology. Now, basically the basic thing about robotized war are 5 constituents. It is software, hardware, data, applications, integration. It is believed that the American strength is in the first two. The strength is in software, because it is the American software frameworks which are being used by most of the world, including even today the Chinese. And their strength is in the hardware, which is the microelectronic, the chips. That is their strength. And the other three areas, which is the data, applications and integrations, are supposed to be the strength of the Chinese and the PLA, because China has the civil military deep fusion. So whatever is there in the commercial side gets to the military, the PLA as well. Now, it seems that this tech war that is going on is primarily to deny the Chinese this. The software, and the software relates to basically human talent, human resources. They are building up their human resources, and insofar as the hardware is concerned, it seems that the Chinese have decided to decouple from the Americans, because Chinese have invested in a lot of money and they are looking at alternate sources. For example, instead of focusing on the silicon based semiconductors, they are looking at a possibility of a carbon based semiconductor, and instead of the ultraviolet lithography, they are looking at the possibility of super resolution imaging. I am just giving very broad examples. This is what they are doing. And the second part of the conventional deterrence obviously is around the Quad, as I have explained earlier also, and India is embedded in this with the traditional and the legacy platforms. I have said last time also, I am saying this also, that there is a possibility that perhaps after the 20th Congress gets over in October 2022, and Xi Jinping once again for the next 5 years or whatever duration becomes the General Secretary, and he becomes the chairman of the Central Military Commission, head of the PLA, that they could, because they have already been here in Ladakh for the last 14 months and add another 1 year to that, that is enough time for them to prepare for the robotized war against India. So we should not believe, for example, Gautam Bambewala recently, he was our ambassador in China. He spoke at one of the programs. He was saying that, look, we can stay face off, the face off can continue because border resolution will take a long time. No, that may not happen. That may just happen. They may decide the capability will be there by 2023, and they may decide that let's do more imbalance. Now let's do the imbalance because they are worried about Quad. Why? They have explained earlier also, they are worried because their options are getting constrained in the Indian Ocean region because of the Indian presence. So a quick war with India will actually demolish this whole Quad, because it will then be, instead of two legs, the Western Pacific and the Indian Ocean region, it will be standing on one leg. So a possibility exists for the Chinese to, if they want the Americans out of this region, what they are trying in their own way, that which of course will not happen, they are trying. So they have created now a deep nuclear deterrence. The imbalance is there, and very much they can do another imbalance at the conventional deterrence level in the region. So we have to guard against this. Thank you.